On our very first date, Juliana told me she had a first love she could never forget. I didn't think twice about it. Who doesn't? A year later, she took me to a cemetery. I stood there staring at a stranger's photo carved into a headstone, forcing a smile that looked worse than crying. A first love? No. This wasn't a first love. This was the one that got away permanently. How do you compete with a dead man? I started packing my bags that same night. And that's exactly when her dead first love knocked on my front door. Chapter 1: The Ice Queen. I met Juliana at my childhood best friend Ignacio's wedding. I was best man, she was bridesmaid. The second I saw her, my eyes went exactly where they shouldn't have. Took real willpower to drag them back up to her face. Big mistake. Because her face was worse. Stunning, and ice-cold, which, unfortunately, happens to be exactly my type. Ignacio caught me staring like an idiot and waved a hand in front of my face. Skylar. Stop. You've got no shot. She's famous for being unwinnable. I just laughed. I've always liked a challenge that everyone says is impossible. Turned out her name was Juliana, Dorotea's college roommate, and Dorotea was the bride. For years of college, countless guys had shown up outside her dorm with guitars, candles, roses. All of them struck out. That's how she earned the nickname. The Ice Queen. Dorotea tried to talk me down. You're not the Titanic. Why are you so determined to hit an iceberg? I've always been stubborn like that. Tell me not to do something, and watch me do it twice as hard. When it came time for the bouquet toss, Dorotea saw me lining up like an eager idiot, sighed, turned her back, and lobbed it straight at me on purpose. I caught it clean. Walked right up to Juliana and held it out. Beautiful. Give me a chance. The whole reception erupted. Juliana looked at me, completely unreadable. You're sure you want to pursue me? I nodded. She took the bouquet. Sighed. You still have time to change your mind. Honestly, there's someone I could never forget. Didn't faze me one bit. Everyone's got a first love. The real question is how many people actually end up marrying theirs. She studied me a second longer, then nodded. Fine. I'll give you a shot. Just don't say I didn't warn you. Even the bride and groom looked stunned. We left the reception and walked down to the river. She stood with her hands behind her back, staring at the water. I stood behind her, admiring the view in a way I'll fully admit was not entirely about her personality. Finally she turned. Why are you pursuing me, Skylar? No point pretending to be some noble gentleman. Because you're beautiful. And you've got an incredible body. The corner of her mouth twitched. That's it? Isn't that enough to start? Picking a girlfriend's a lot like buying clothes. If it doesn't catch your eye, you never even try it on. Whether it actually fits, you only find that out after wearing it a while. She thought about that. That makes sense. The second I saw you, I said, I had this feeling. Like you were the one I was meant to end up with. She looked at me, surprised, and murmured, meant to be. Smart enough not to push it further. If the conversation drifted anywhere near her first love, this thing was dead before it started. Chapter 2: Missing Something. That evening I took her to a street food market, deliberately unglamorous, on purpose. Her eyes lit up with curiosity watching the crowd while I inhaled skewers like it was a competitive sport. Why here? She asked. You're not secretly rich, are you? My dad's a teacher. My mom's a doctor. Good. Same world as me. I brought you here because you're missing something. What am I missing? I figured a woman that untouchable needed the blunt version. A little humanity. Some down-to-earth warmth. She pressed her lips together and went quiet for the rest of the meal. When it was over, she just said, I had a great time, Skylar. Thank you, and got in her car. Told her to text when she got home. My phone buzzed 20 minutes later. One word. Home. I grinned and typed back, good. Winning her over was clearly going to be a marathon, not a sprint. Fresh out of the shower, someone knocked. Ignacio and Dorotea on their wedding night, at my door. Shouldn't you two be, I don't know, anywhere else right now? Dorotea got straight to it. Skylar. Stop chasing Juliana. There's something you should know, she's got a first love she can't let go of. She already told me. Her eyes went wide. And you're still going after her? You're thinking too small, I said. I actually like women who can love that deeply. She's just stuck on one chapter. The day she finally turns the page and reaches mine, she'll love me with that exact same devotion. Ignacio considered it. I guess that tracks. Can't relate personally. I don't even remember what my first love looked like. Dorotea grabbed him by the ear on the spot. I am your first love. We're leaving. You're explaining yourself in the car. I shut the door on the bickering newlyweds and lay on my bed staring at the ceiling. Sounded easy enough in theory. But if turning the page were really that simple, she wouldn't still be stuck on it. Chapter 3, The Night Everything Changed. From that day on, winning Juliana became my full-time hobby. That feeling of this is the one is addictive in a way words don't really cover, like the whole world quietly disappears and it's just the two of you, hearts falling into the same rhythm. I drove her to work every morning. Sent her stupid memes throughout the day. She always replied, short, but genuine. We went on dates. Hung out with friends. Wandered the city. She was never resistant. But never especially eager either. Whenever old relationships came up in conversation, I changed the subject immediately. Her first love was history. I was the present. No point competing with a memory. 6 months in, we'd grown closer, but only a little. Holding hands on walks was as far as it went. Then one night, my phone rang. Juliana. And for the first time ever, real panic in her voice. Skylar, can you come? My dad collapsed. I was out the door before I finished processing the sentence. Her mother, a doctor, was already performing first aid when I got there. I confirmed he was stable enough to move, hauled him onto my back, and floored it to the hospital. Behind me, her mother's hands shook so badly she could barely dial. A stretcher was already waiting when we screeched up to the entrance. They rushed him straight into surgery. I spent the night handling paperwork and payments while Juliana and her mother waited. The operating room lights stayed on until dawn. He pulled through. Cardiac event, the doctor said if we'd waited on an ambulance, it might have ended very differently. For the first time, Juliana looked at me with something warm in her eyes. I stayed to help care for her father through recovery, easygoing guy, turned out. We talked for hours over those few days, and his opinion of me shifted from wary to genuinely warm. When he was finally cleared to go home, I drove them, sat with the family a while, then got up to leave. Juliana walked me down. Her face went red. She hugged me, out of nowhere. Skylar, thank you. Don't thank me. Not between us. I stroked her hair. Who knows, maybe soon, your dad's my dad too. Her whole face went scarlet. Chapter 4, Moving In. I got home and collapsed. Days of adrenaline finally caught up with me. Half asleep, a knock at the door. I opened it to find Juliana standing there with bags in her hands, staring at the floor. I told my parents I was moving in with you, she said quietly. They said yes. I stood there frozen for a second, then grinned like an idiot and pulled her inside. This was her first time actually seeing my place. That night, when I tried to take things further, she slipped free, cheeks burning. I'm going to take a shower. And vanished into the bathroom. Afterward, she laid down with her back to me. I wrapped my arms around her. She tensed, then slowly relaxed. First night I held her all the way through. The next day I brought her to meet my parents. They adored her instantly, kind, polite, quietly graceful. With both families on board, we officially moved in together. Living together brought us closer, but every time things heated up, she gently but firmly stopped me. "I'm sorry, Skylar. Just, give me a little more time. I'm not ready yet." I told her I understood. I did. Understanding just didn't make the waiting any easier. I'd assumed my presence would eventually crowd out that old memory. Instead, it just refused to budge. On our 1-year anniversary, we had dinner with Ignacio and Dorotea, the two people responsible for all of this. Dorotea nearly cried watching us together. Back in college, nobody thought any man would ever be good enough for you. And somehow, this idiot actually won you over. Juliana pulled Dorotea aside to whisper something. Ignacio elbowed me. "So? Did you finally seal the deal?" I just smiled and shook my head. He lit up immediately, smelling gossip. I wasn't about to admit the truth. That night, Juliana was unusually nervous, stealing glances, blushing every time our eyes met. After her shower, she stopped me before bed. "Skylar, do you still want us to be closer?" I looked at her, confused. Blushing to her ears, she whispered, "Dorotea told me, if I've really made up my mind, I shouldn't keep making you wait." So Dorotea had been coaching her. "Have you really made up your mind?" I asked. She just bit her lip and said nothing. I sighed. "Let's get some sleep." Lights off, she leaned over and kissed me first, clumsy, hesitant, but real. Neither of us held back after that. Afterward, I switched the lamp back on and noticed something on the sheets. Something that made me freeze. "Julie, the first love you said you could never forget, did that happen when you were 10? She wiped her eyes. "No. I was 18. He and I." I didn't let her finish that sentence. Chapter 5, The Gravestone. The next morning, curled against me, she asked softly, "Skylar, can you come with me to see him one last time? I want to say goodbye to the past." My good mood evaporated instantly. Wasn't an ex supposed to stay in the past? Why did she still need to say goodbye? Sounded a lot like an excuse to see him again. Still, remembering last night, I reluctantly agreed. She drove. The roads got emptier and emptier. My nerves climbed with every mile. "Julie, where exactly are we going?" Real sadness in her eyes. "Almost there." We pulled up to a cemetery. I stared at the photo carved into the headstone, a young man, smiling, frozen in time, and forced a smile of my own that probably looked worse than crying. This wasn't a first love. This was a ghost she'd never buried. I'd been such an idiot. I never once thought to ask if he was alive. Watching tears roll down her face, I already knew I'd lost. Nobody living beats somebody dead. The dead never age, never disappoint, never do anything wrong ever again. Time to go. She could keep the apartment. Back home, I started packing while she was still lost in grief and didn't notice. A knock at the door. I opened it. The man on the other side looked strangely, impossibly familiar. Wait. Why did he look exactly like the boy in that photograph? His eyes slid past me and locked onto Juliana. "Julie. I'm back." Chapter 6, Not a Ghost. Juliana's face cycled through disbelief, panic, and rage, everything except fear. I let out a breath of relief. Good. At least he wasn't a ghost. The guy tried to shove past me into the apartment. I blocked him. "Hey, regardless of anything else, I still live here. You don't just walk in." Bloodshot eyes. "Get out of my way." Quite the temper on this one. Juliana stood, walked over, wrapped her arm around mine, trembling, though whether from shock or fury I couldn't tell. "Alonso, you're not dead?" He looked at her like a kicked dog. "I'm not dead. I saw your posts online. I flew back the second I saw them." Then he shot me a look of pure venom, for reasons I hadn't earned yet. Juliana let out a laugh with zero humor in it. So when your mother told me you died in a car accident buying my birthday cake, that was a lie too? He said nothing. Alonso, when you wanted to study abroad, I never once tried to stop you. Why did you have to fake your death instead of just telling me the truth? Watching her shake with anger, the pieces clicked into place for me. Honey, hold on. I think I've got this figured out. I turned to her. You two were together in high school. 3 years. He wanted to study abroad, but you wouldn't go with him. She nodded slowly. I looked at Alonso, still sprawled on the floor. Now I get it. This whole thing was staged. He didn't want to lose you before leaving, but he didn't want to give up studying abroad for you either. So on his way to buy your birthday gift, he conveniently got hit by a car. Faked the whole thing, left the country, had his mother deliver the tragic news so you'd spend years drowning in guilt and never move on. That way, no matter how many years passed, he'd still have a shot at winning you back, because you'd never actually let him go. Alonso's face went white. You're making that up. I really was in an accident I almost didn't survive. Sure, I said flatly. Where's the hospital record? Where's the medical file? This isn't even a clever plot. It's a bad soap opera rerun. He had nothing. Chapter 7, her own words. I turned back to Juliana. One more question. Why did he rush back the second he saw your Instagram? What exactly did you post? She handed me her phone, blushing. You'll have to see for yourself. Password? Your birthday. That made my day considerably better. I opened Instagram, hadn't touched the app in years, didn't realize she was even active. She had exactly 1 follower, a profile named Alone. Alonso. For the first few years, her posts were nothing but guilt and grief over him. Blaming herself for the birthday cake he never delivered. I actually laughed reading it. What's funny? She asked, confused. I patted her head. Nothing was your fault. If you'd asked him to buy you an orange, he still would have gotten hit by that car. She pouted, eyes watery. I kept scrolling. About a year back, the tone shifted completely. Today I was my best friend's bridesmaid. The best man was so weird, checked me out shamelessly. But the second he handed me the bouquet, it felt like everyone else disappeared. Just us. When he said he wanted to date me, I said yes without even thinking. It felt like fate. I looked up. Her cheeks were fully crimson. So it hadn't just been me who felt it. The posts that followed traced our whole relationship, mentions of Alonso fading out completely, replaced by little snapshots of our life. The night her dad collapsed. I didn't call an ambulance first. I called Skylar. That was the right call. The second he showed up, I felt completely safe. The day she moved in. I stood outside his door with my suitcase, terrified. What if he thought less of me? And the most recent post written the night before, after our dinner with Ignacio and Dorotea. Skylar has proven, again and again, he's someone I can trust with my whole life. I want to give myself to him completely. I've decided to try tonight. Juliana, you can do this. I looked at her with a slow grin. She buried her face against my chest, completely mortified. Every post confirmed it, line by line. Her heart had already crossed over. Completely. To me. Chapter 8, The Stranger I Happened to Recognize. I looked back down at Alonso, pale as a corpse on our floor. So the real reason you flew back, I said, is because you saw she was finally ready to give herself to me. You panicked. You realized this was your last shot and you'd blown it. Silence. That silence was answer enough. Alonso, what exactly did years of studying abroad teach you? You're the kind of guy who wants his cake and to eat it too. If someone like you ever ends up with real power over people, a lot of them are going to get hurt. Do yourself a favor. Learn how to be a decent human being before you crack open another textbook. He didn't respond. Didn't even look up. Juliana looked at him without a flicker of emotion, like she was looking at a stranger on the street. I let out a long breath. That chapter, finally, was closed. Honestly? I was glad he'd turned out to be alive. If I'd ever stumbled onto that Instagram years down the line and learned the truth after the fact, I'd have regretted it forever. Juliana tugged my hand gently. Honey, maybe we should call the police. If the neighbors see him lying in our house. I froze. Honey, what did you just call me? Blushing, she said it again. Husband. First time ever. She'd never minded honey from me, but she'd never once called me that. At that exact moment, Alonso let out something between a growl and a scream, scrambled up, and fled the apartment in complete disgrace. Watching him go, I smacked my lips. Kind of cruel of us, rubbing our happiness in your first love's face like that. She smacked my arm lightly. That night, we thoroughly made up for lost time. I couldn't help it. That cold little face paired with that impossible figure was, and remains, genuinely addictive. Honey, she whispered later. Even if Alonso really had died, he still wouldn't compare to you. Right? See? That's exactly what I thought. How could a dead man ever beat a living one? Husband, you're such a pervert. With that last wall finally gone, everything between us changed. Even silence across a dinner table now carried its own kind of happiness. Chapter 9, The Bride Price. A month later, my family brought gifts to formally meet Juliana's parents. They welcomed us warmly. Ever since I'd saved her father's life, I could do no wrong in their eyes. Her father prepared an enormous feast and pulled out liquor he'd been saving for years. I stopped him before he could pour. My dad frowned, thinking I'd overstepped. Her mother smiled and explained, "Don't misunderstand, my husband has heart disease. He can't drink." My dad immediately flipped his own glass upside down. Then none of us drink. If nobody's drinking, he won't be tempted. Lunch went perfectly. Afterward, both families sat down to discuss the bride price. Juliana looked nervous, worried this part might create friction. I squeezed her hand. My mother handed over a card. Tradition calls for 188,000. I adored Julie, so I added another 100. 288,000 total. Please accept it. Her mother didn't refuse, she just handed the card straight to Juliana. This is yours and Skylar's. Build your life together. That's all we could ever want. Her father, grinning, produced a second card for me. A little something from your aunt and me. 100,000. Not much, but it's yours. Juliana accepted it on my behalf, beaming. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Chapter 10, The Wedding Date. Juliana had a certified public accountant exam coming up in 6 months, something she'd worked toward for years. I refused to let a wedding interfere with that. We agreed to wait, and both families approved without hesitation. Support first, celebration after. We took our friends out for dinner to celebrate the engagement. Every one of Juliana's old college roommates showed up, still in disbelief that the untouchable Ice Queen was getting married. Dorothea, predictably, demanded a seat at the head table. If I hadn't dragged Juliana into being my bridesmaid, you two never would have met. Ignacio backed her up, a little tipsy. My wife's completely right. We're basically your matchmakers. I gave them both a look. Really? Because I distinctly remember someone telling me I had zero chance. And someone else telling me not to be the Titanic crashing into an iceberg. Ignacio glanced away, sheepish. Juliana jumped in to smooth things over. Husband, be nice, if Dorothea hadn't thrown me that bouquet, we wouldn't be here. The word husband stopped the entire table cold. Dorothea grabbed the roommate next to her. Did you hear that? Our Ice Queen just called someone husband. The whole table erupted, demanding she say it again. Juliana turned the color of a tomato. Walking home afterward, hand in hand, she asked quietly, Husband, when you were chasing me, did you already picture us ending up like this? Every step of the way, I said. Remember what you wrote on Instagram? About feeling like we were meant to be? I felt the exact same thing. When everyone told me to give up, I told them that feeling was impossible to ignore. Like the whole world disappeared and there was only us. She looked up at the moon. You're right. Looking back, that's exactly how it felt. We walked the rest of the way without another word needed. The city noise, the traffic, the crowd, all of it faded out again, the way it had that very first night. Just two heartbeats, finally in sync. Chapter 11, The Stranger I Recognize. A dark shape lunged out of nowhere and shattered the moment completely. I was ready to lose it on whoever had zero spatial awareness until I got a better look. Alonso. Which somehow made me angrier. Juliana didn't even glance at him. She just tried to walk around until he dropped straight to his knees in front of her. Julie. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I never should have lied to you. I finally understand, nothing matters more than you. I can't live without you. I looked at Juliana. Her eyes were crystal clear. No love left. Not even hate. Alonso, she said, flat and even. Don't show up in front of me again. To me, you're just a stranger I happen to recognize. He flinched like she'd hit him. Julie, please, even if you hate me, that's fine, just. Why would I hate you? She said. If you hadn't shown up that day, I probably would have forgotten someone like you ever existed. Nothing cuts deeper than being erased. Hatred at least means you still register. Being looked through like empty air, that's the wound that never closes. Chapter 12, The Last Delivery. Alonso didn't take the hint. He never really had shame to begin with. The next evening, picking Juliana up from work, I spotted him trailing behind her like a stray dog, talking nonstop while she flat out ignored him. Security noticed and moved in. Juliana shook her head at the guard, pointed at Alonso, and mouthed, I don't know him. The guard's eyes went wide. Sir. Leave. Now. Harass another employee and I remove you myself. By the time I reached her, Alonso was already being wrestled off the property. Juliana lit up seeing me. Husband, you're here. I nodded toward Alonso. What's going on? She rushed to explain, worried I'd misread it. I never said a word to him, I promise. Relax, I said. You think I don't trust my own wife? I just don't want him showing up here every day. The guard overheard and gave Alonso a few solid whacks with his baton for good measure. Repeat offender, huh? Get lost. Show your face again and I'm calling the police. Alonso fled, clutching his head. The guard turned to Juliana, practically glowing with pride. Director, I promise he won't get near this building again. And, maybe don't mention this at tomorrow's meeting? She nodded, amused. At work she came across as untouchable, but underneath it, she was easy enough to work with, as long as you didn't cross a line. Alonso tried a few more times over the following months. Got chased off and beaten enough times that he finally, actually learned his lesson. 6 months flew by. Juliana walked out of her CPA exam with the biggest smile I'd ever seen. Husband. I'm definitely passing this one. I already knew. Her face said it before her mouth did. The next day was our wedding, which happened to fall on her birthday too. 2 celebrations, 1 day. Chapter 13, The Final Delivery. After the wedding games and toasts with my groomsmen, I lifted Juliana into my arms, carrying her toward the car. A voice cut through the crowd from a distance. Julie! Don't marry him! Look what I brought! Alonso, sprinting toward us, holding a birthday cake over his head like a trophy. Julie, the birthday cake I never got to give you, 10 years ago. I'm finally bringing it to you. He was in such a hurry he vaulted straight over the median barrier without looking. I instinctively covered Juliana's eyes with my hand. A speeding truck never slowed down. The cake he'd waited 10 years to deliver never made it to her hands either. I guess the role he'd faked once finally became real. Epilogue. Some stories end with closure. Ours ended with a 10-year-old life finally catching up to the man who told it. Juliana never looked back. Not out of cruelty, just because there was nothing left back there to look at. We got married that same afternoon, a little later than planned, in front of both families who'd already claimed each other as their own. That night, under the same sky where I once told her I felt like we were meant to be, she finally believed it too. Turns out you can't compete with a dead man. But you can absolutely outlast a lie.